Yeah, we're starting a minute early. Live, Triple T, number 20. Got a few messages that we're going to be starting a little slow tonight, but we got people trickling in. Get this. For those of you that this is your first time, my name is TJ Zebel. I am a professional problem solver. I'll just stick with that. It takes too long to describe all the other things I've done in my short life. And this is Triple T, Talk Time with TJ. If you have not watched one of these before or been part of one, first hour, I got a couple of things that I've collected over the week that I chat about, talk about, open our brains and share them with you. And then the second hour, we open it up almost like open mic to anybody that has something that they would like help with or comments on or anything. And you don't even have to know how to spell NLP to join in. So I always like to do a recap on the week. Anybody got any ahas, epiphanies, things they'd like to share from? Yeah, 20, Elijah. Can you believe that? So, any of you guys have anything you'd like to share?
Hi, guys.
All right.
Great news. I
Cool.
had a moment of clarity during future pacing this morning, and I was okay. It went really, really well. I was totally okay. Super excited about it. See, thought you'd all be excited. Yeah,
That is totally awesome.
it
You want to
was. It
share
was.
any additional on it or something that whatever it was that clicked so anybody that's been watching struggling may get some benefit?
For people who don't know, I kind of get hung up on the future. And if it won't look exactly like that, then oh my goodness. And it was much more like, this is a possibility. It's okay. You can look at this. You can stay here for a while. And it went so much better. It did. So for all the awesome help that everybody helps me with, it went really good.
Whoop, whoop.
Thank you, everybody.
Awesome sauce. Glad to hear that. Thanks for sharing.
Sure thing.
Yes, Francie.
I had a session with Fran. Not sure if it was this week or last week, but it was between the last and this one. Sometimes it takes a little bit more cleaning up in the specific area to actually. Sometimes we miss a little bit, and when you actually manage to clear it, it's, I don't know, things are different. I don't know how to put it in words, but I don't know. It's just life looks much greener. The grass looks much greener. I don't know. The sunshine feels much warmer. It's kind of, yeah. It's interesting.
That's awesome. That's one of the reasons why in the profession that I'm in right now, we often joke a little tongue in cheek, but it's true enough to be true that you can work with somebody 6, 7, 8 times, and just it feels like you're just not getting anywhere. And all of a sudden, the 9th time, something just clicks, and it all falls in place, and you realize that you had to chip away at the foundation enough to be able to get something to move. And so for the people that are like, yeah, I tried that one time, it didn't work. I'm like, wow, one time, huh? How's that work in other parts of your life? That thank God you didn't stop when you were trying to learn how to walk as a kid. Yeah, I tried that one time. It didn't work. I've been crawling ever since. That walking thing, no, not for me. So yeah, Francine, keep working.
I am, and it always has helped in some ways, but in this particular area, I kind of often felt a bit stuck. It's like I couldn't shift it. It's very early childhood stuff, and it seemed like I couldn't shift it. And suddenly now I actually can see better where the problems or issues I can work on. I actually can see them. I have two now. So next time I see Fran, I'll say, "Oh, we need to." Because I know, so because before it felt just this huge heavy ball. Now I have more like target. It's like I have a laser gun now, and connect.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. This is why we do what we do.
Lasers are the best.
Yes.
We love us some lasers.
Yes. It's like I've got the heavy machinery now. Watch.
Very cool.
I had a chat with someone today. Oh, sorry. We can carry on. I can wait till my turn.
Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I had a random chat with someone today. It was like an accidental, when you butt dial someone, right? And it's just like and then they answer and you're like, "Oh, hey, I thought you rang me." No, I thought you rang me. I was like, "Oh, I was ringing you back because I thought you rang me," that kind of thing. And then we ended up talking. And she asked me very nervously, she asked me, "Oh, how much do you charge for a session?" And I was like, "Oh man," like I usually that means that they probably won't be willing to have the commitment, or follow through anyway. So I told her, I'm like, okay, I charge like 180 for a session. And she went, "Oh, I thought you were going to say 500 or something." And I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Right?
So turns out there are some people out there who think I'm worth even more than what I thought I was worth. So that was awesome. That was a really cool moment that happened to me this afternoon.
I happen to have that conversation with a number of my clients who are trying to build wealth, and I start asking them, and I'm just as guilty. Earlier in my business time, my biggest problem was, well, I wouldn't pay that much for that. I can do it myself. Well, yeah, you can. They're not the people that can do it themselves. They're coming to you for help. And if you're not going to charge that much, other people are, and they are getting it. And the people are happily paying it. And even though you wouldn't go to those people and pay that, somebody is. And you have to be able to keep the doors open and spread the wealth. I've had some clients where, well, I don't need to make that much money. I just need to get by. I'm like, okay, so when you're getting by, how many people can you help? Well, what do you mean? I said, well, if you got a job, just above broke, and you're living paycheck to paycheck, and somebody needs some help, how many people can you help? What if you had a net worth of $1 million or something? Would it be a little easier to help a few more people? instead of making it about yourself, what can you do with what that has allowed you to become? And you don't have to announce it. The world doesn't even have to know you do it. You know, watching the single mother trying to figure out what she's going to put back on the shelf because she's only got X amount of money to feed herself and her kids. And you just go up to the cashier and hand the cashier a couple $100 and say, when she comes through, she gets all the change, and let her know she can go back and grab that extra gallon of milk that she was looking at. And you don't have to let anybody know you did it. There's a certain power in stuff like that. And we've been trained, you know, all the sayings, how many times, you know, different sayings we heard as a kid. You know, money doesn't grow on trees. What do I look like? A bag? Da, 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 da. Well, you're right, it doesn't grow on trees. But there's so much money on this planet. There's so much money on this planet. Drug dealers have houses with rooms filled with $100 bills. That's how much money there is on the planet.
And there's always more. Like, okay, let's say there was a plot of land, right?
Yep.
And you bought it for an overpriced amount. You know, let's say it was in a valuable neighborhood or whatever, sought after, and you bought it and you paid too much for it. But then you build a castle on the land, right? Does it not go up in value? And even after, like, you pay the architect and the electrician to wire it up, the painters, the decorators, the gardener to make it look nice, even after you pay all of that out, is it not still worth more now that there's a castle on it? And then on top of that, go one step further. Is the land next to the castle now not worth more because there's a castle next to it? Like, yes. There's always wealth being created and there's so much available. It's just, all you really have to do is find a way to put your name on it or your name against it. And that's much easier than thinking, oh, I have to work and work and work and work and work and earn pittance, you know?
Yeah. Yep. One of my clients is he's reached the point he's learning to hate his job. He hates going to work. He doesn't enjoy it, all the above. And I'm like, dude, you know that if you just went out and collected $1 for every help wanted sign there is out right now in America, you could pay all your bills just by getting $1 for every help wanted sign? Well, yeah, but I'm not much into change. I'm like, well, then pick which one sucks the least. Changing or finding a new job. And I said, besides that, what would your absolute, oh my goodness, I can't believe this actually exists. I would do it for free, but they actually pay people to do this? They pay more than I'm making right now? Really? They're paying people more than I'm making right now to do something? Really? And I've gotten to know enough about him. I said, if you wrote down a list of everything that you absolutely love to do, that if you didn't have to pay your bills, that's what you would do all day, every day, just to do it. And I know for a fact that one of them for him is hiking. He's like, well, I said, no, seriously, what would you do if you didn't have to pay your bills? Well, I love hiking. I said, yeah. Did you know, and I happen to know where he lives and had some inside information. I said, did you know that the city 15 miles north of you has a job opening right now for trail management? They need someone to take care of all of the hiking trails in your area. Guess what you would have to do all day? You'd have to hike and take care of the hiking trails that you love to hike on. And he was like, what? I said, oh, by the way, this is what they're paying for that starting out, which happened to be $3 an hour more than he was making at the time. And he was like, what? Well, there's a reason why I have amassed currently 28 different professions. One of them has to be with the fact that I love to travel, so I moved around a lot, traveled a lot, and every time I moved somewhere, it was like, well, I need a place to stay, I need to feed myself, so I got to find some type of work, and I would look for any type of work that I could physically do. That led to a lot of different things. But I also had kind of a deal of an attitude of I was looking for a job when I got this one. If it gets to where I'm not enjoying it anymore, after a while I will find another one. So life's too short to be showing up every day and hating your job, especially now when it seems like there was a sign at the Kentucky Fried Chicken by here, and they said, now hiring anyone who will show up. That, seriously, that's how desperate they're getting for workers around here. It's also a sign of how lazy people have gotten with getting paid to stay home. And it's a sad combination.
You know, discipline can be painful, but regret is also painful. So,
Yes.
you know, pick your poison.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up. I got to see if I can. There it is. Here's a quote off of Jocko Willink post on Facebook, and said, discipline is the ability to make yourself do something you don't want to do in order to get a result you really want to get. Quote by Andy Andrews. Read that one more time. Discipline is the ability to make yourself do something you don't want to do in order to get a result you really want to get. And there are a lot of people that lack the discipline. They can't understand why they can't get anywhere. They have the ability to complain, but they don't have the discipline to change. And I've been guilty of that a couple of times. I'll openly admit it. That was the human part of me. I was like, dang, I'm not a robot. Guess I'll have to admit I'm a human again. So that was a fun little squirrel to chase around. Anybody want to add to that before we change gears? Yes, no? Bueller? Okay. Did anybody catch my Facebook post on what I came across for today? Any thoughts on what you think it's about?
Well, I think you said resumes. Isn't that like a CV or something like that? I'm not too sure.
Yep, I put down introductions, obituaries, and resumes.
Yes, okay. Yeah, so obituary, that's when someone dies, isn't it?
It is.
Well, I'm still alive, so.
Yes. So I'm going to start with introductions, and this comes from something that happened probably about a month ago now, where, yes, I knew better. I teach this. I should have known better. And I still didn't follow it. Was going to do an interview for a podcast for a friend of mine. And so we get it all set up and everything. And she goes, how do you want me to introduce you? Well, I've known her for long enough. I'm like, well, you know me. Just go ahead. Oops. Yeah. And to her credit, she did fine because it was, we didn't rehearse it. We didn't really talk about a whole lot of stuff. And she didn't know how to pronounce my last name. I don't know if she even really knew my last name. She just knew me by TJ. And introduced me incorrectly on a couple of different things, and I had to correct her, which looks really good for a podcast. And I should have stopped it and had us take a break for a half hour or something so I could write up something and email it to her so she could read it. But I didn't. And in the end, we both agreed after we had put down an hour of track, got everything recorded, and that night it was eating away at me. And the next day she texted me, she goes, so do you want to post that one? I'm like, no. I'm going to write an introduction and let's redo it. Well, it's been a month now. We lost a month because I wasn't prepared on the front side with a written introduction for myself.
Do you think it's okay if someone asks you, how would you like me to introduce you, to ask them to say, well, TJ, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody and let you do the intro, like let the host let you do your own introduction?
That's one of the angles that we brought up. I find it to be a little more personal when it's on their podcast, or when you have, when you're doing corporate talks and things of that nature. That's a different circuit where if the MC comes out and goes, all right, we got somebody else coming up to talk about themselves, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Come on in and tell us about yourself.
Yeah, that's a different context, though.
Yep. And I like to put the application also into the podcast because I've listened to both styles, but I find that I feel a little more credibility when the person doing the podcast goes, and today's guest is so-and-so, and he or she has done this and that, and they've got a background in this, and they've been doing this, and the person who has the podcast is able to lay out what they know about this person, makes it more personal to me and a little more professional than, yeah, I met this person. Would you tell us about yourself, please? Because I don't know jack about you. That's my take on it. Either way, I think that if you're going to be doing any type of speaking on podcasts or speaking in general, it would behoove you to put together, if nothing else, a skeleton layout introduction that when it comes time, you can quickly personalize for the application. And if it's a podcast, email it to them, let them rehearse it a couple of times so that they can read it, put it into their own words, so be it, so that it sounds not so canned or rehearsed, I guess. But that was one thing that I wanted to share, especially in this day and age. But my wife listens to podcasts all the time. But I love it. She's one of my favorite quotes of her. I heard this on a podcast, and the amount of information that she gathers from different podcasts is incredible. And because we're in the same house, I get to listen to some of the podcasts too. And I've noticed that a lot of the introductions, again, and our guest today on this podcast is so-and-so, and they've got a background in such and such, and they've been doing it for this many years, and they are currently blah, 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 and they've got a website called blah, 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 and thanks for coming on. Boom. And the podcast rolls, and you know enough about the person and why you have to listen to them right off the bat. But it's from the person that is the host, not the person that they randomly found on the street. That's my take. The other cool thing about it is, how do you see yourself? Writing even if you don't plan on doing a talk, I think a number of people should do an introduction, write up an introduction, just to have a little self-reflection on who they are and how would I have people introduce me? What would I have people say about me? Another fun thing that being my background in AV and being a DJ for so many years and all the above, is if you had a soundtrack that they would play while you were coming up on stage, what would that soundtrack be? I've got a couple of them that I've picked out. One is 2 Tickets to Paradise. There's always you can go to any of the arena rock ones like Thunderstruck or something like that, or if you're not quite that bold, maybe a little Sade or something. Who knows? Or if you're Fran, you could, when she gets here, you can tell her I said this. You can design your own music. And when people go, that was cool. Who is that? Well, I did that. That's mine. And I'll sell you a copy. Copyright released. So that's my little blurb on introductions. Anybody got any questions, feedback, ahas? Okay. Guess we got that one covered. On to the other end. The information when your time is done, the obituary. This one hits a little close to home. Simply because of, regardless of how much time we think we have, it doesn't matter. We know that at some point, that's going to end. And a lot of people, my father, God bless him, I love him, I miss him dearly, But he was like, I'll be dead. Who gives a shit? I'm not going to care. I'm like, thanks, Pops. We'll still be here. And I had no idea the war his obituary would start between a family member, one of my siblings, and myself. And my father's step brothers and sisters, because my sibling, actually my sibling's spouse, took it on to write the obituary and left out all the step family, which hurt their feelings, and weighted it in such a way that not only that, I didn't feel that it properly represented my father. So I rewrote it because where we grew up, the local newspaper, the obituaries are a pretty big thing. I mean, if you live in San Diego, I don't think I even saw obituaries in the paper anymore, because it would be 28 pages of the newspaper versus where we grew up, where it's, a little section about this big in one sheet of the newspaper, and they, you give them the obit and a picture. And here's the other thing. Spread this to everybody you know, especially your loved ones and especially your parents. Pre-write the obituary. You can change the dates, you can change a few things, but get all the basic stuff in there. Let the whole family know it's written, it's done, it's agreed on, the person it's about wants it this way, done. When it's time to fill in the blanks, all we got to do is date, cause of death if you want it. It'll save a lot of fights. Also, pick the picture. Please pick the picture beforehand. That was another huge. My father was a blue-collar worker, truck driver, his entire life. And they decided to post a picture of him in a suit. I was like, are you trying to bring him back from the dead? Because this will do it. I mean, no offense. I've seen Papa in a suit 2 times more than I've seen him in a dress. So, no, I take that back, 3 times. There's a picture of him when he got married. He was in a suit. There's a picture of him when his dad died, in a suit that we bought on the spend down, and he fought the whole time. And then this picture that was taken at their wedding, and that's why they picked it, because, well, it was at our wedding and you took it, you should be happy. I'm like, if I took a picture of him in a dress at Halloween, just because I took it doesn't mean that's the representation that we need following him for the rest of his life. Well, for the rest of the world. And so in the end, I ended up buying or paying for a second obituary with a picture of him dressed the way everybody knew him, in his cap that he wore for 20 years. 20 years, same hat, baseball cap. So in the obituary, that's the heavy part. Now the fun part. You can even have some fun with some future pacing. Write your obituary and put the instructions in there that they can eliminate the stuff that hasn't happened yet. But what would you like your obituary to be read as? What have you accomplished, but what do you plan on accomplishing before now and the time that this is actually going to be posted? And I'm trying to remember the story because it just came to me. I didn't plan on this. I want to say that it was Nobel who had designed, he was into weapons. He had designed something, a gun or a bomb or something. And the newspaper had accidentally written an obituary for his brother, but wrote it as Dr. Death has finally met his doom. The person who designed the war machine, the deal of war, has finally passed. And he saw that and went, that's how they're gonna remember me? He didn't design the weapon to be used to kill people. He designed it to end war. He wanted it to be something that would, maybe it was a Gatling, no, not a Gatling gun, but it was something where he came up with it so that it would be bad enough that it would end wars. People would not want to fight if the other side had this weapon. And when he realized that was what they had picked to remember him, it changed his life. Just like that, he was like, and I need to do something different. And that's why I'm thinking it was Nobel, because in the end, with the stuff that he promoted, they came out with the Nobel Peace Prize because of his work. But it wasn't until he accidentally read his obituary that he realized that that was not where he wanted to go, what he wanted to leave his mark on the world as. So again, a little heavy, could be. But on the other hand, just like Nobel, when he read it and went, yeah, not so much. What can we do? How can we change? What would we like changed on our obituary to enhance what we would want the world to remember us as? And I got to admit, my father's funeral, I was pleasantly impressed. A, because he was kind of he was one of those introverted extroverts and never really got out of the small town that I grew up in. But the amount of people that showed up and the amount of things that they said about him showed that he made a much larger dent in the universe than some of the people that were from the same town. So, any input on that? Of course, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to whittle my obituary down so that it doesn't read like a novel where I'm like, and then.
Sometimes when I hear people kind of go into that negative talk and stuff, I also say, what do you think your best friend would say about that? You know, and then it just kind of helps them to get into a slightly different, it's into the perspective of someone who likes them, who loves them, and maybe have it from a different point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah. Lenora, are you going to say something? I feel like I cut you off.
You're perfection. Do not worry. I don't like the idea of writing my own personal obituary. I think that's a little much, but at the same time, I could see the other side of it and how, what else do you want to say? Which it gives it a really interesting perspective, because one of my favorite quotes is by Les Brown when he says, all your talents stood around you. You're on your deathbed. All your talents are there. And they came to you and they're looking at you with these angry eyes. And they're saying, we came to you and you didn't utilize us. And it's a quick shift of a perspective to go, that's right. I am going to die. And I don't always have tomorrow and the next tomorrow and the next tomorrow. And it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Can't think of the word, guys. Help you like light that fire. Like, okay,
Motivating.
Thank you. Yes, but it's very interesting to see, and I didn't realize that people do fight over the things that are written about these people. I could see that, but I didn't really think about that much.
Actually, the newspaper, when I heard that they'd already submitted the obit for Papa, I went online quick and saw it and was mortified. I'm like, he's in a suit. No. So I called the newspaper because I knew them. I'd done plenty of work with them and everything. And I'm like, there was a mistake made. We got the wrong obituary got sent in. I'd already had it pretty much finalized anyway, so I finalized the rest of it and found out that, of course, other family members were royally insulted. So I made sure I took care of that as well and submitted it, only to find out that my sibling found out that I had done that and called back and made them switch it again. And when I called the newspaper again, they're like, look, this happens all the time. We can't get in the middle of this. As much as we know you, TJ, and they knew my pops, they're like, your sibling got in first, and we can't keep playing this. And that's when I was like, okay, so what's it going to cost me to have a second one? They're like $100. So sold, done, fine. And then when my sibling found out that I paid for a second one that they couldn't take down, and now both of them were up, oh yeah. So right off of the little comment of, I'm not a robot, I am a human. I do have an expiration date. Why not? If I'm going to have anybody write it up, might as well be me. I've lived with myself my entire life. I know myself pretty well, probably better than most people. So if nothing else, I'll at least give them a really good foundational one that they can build on or add to. But again, it doesn't have to, you don't have to look at it through morbid eyes of, I'm going to die. This sucks. Yeah, we're going to die. But like I said, write one that is this one and then write a future pace one. TJ passed away at the ripe age of 94. His whole life was dedicated to service of others and training and teaching. Most people knew him as a fun goofball who always had some way of trying to figure out a solution to a problem, possibly three. You know, the other fun thing that I like is, how many movies did we see where, the video. Well, if you're seeing this, that means something's happened to me and I'm no longer alive. So to my ex, to the rest of you that, and I'm leaving everything I own to my dog Pebbles. What music do you want played at your funeral? I know a few songs I was adamant about that I wasn't going to have played at my papa's funeral, and mainly because they're funeral songs. And I didn't want an anchor of, that song comes on and everybody's crying and they're trying to, sing through it and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no. I didn't expect Pops to live, forever. So we played Go Rest High on the Mountain because he liked both kinds of music, country and Western. And then we played a truck driving song, and it was a way to remember who he was. And so, what would you like played at your song or at your funeral? I asked somebody that once, and they're like, "Highway to Hell." I'm like, Karma's listening. It's getting hot in here. Another song we're not playing at a funeral. Francine Jump by Van Halen. Yeah. I'm walking on sunshine. Oh. Oh, we could go on and on for this. So, think about that. One song that crossed my mind was Garth Brooks' "The River." There's, pick something that means something to you. I'd even told one friend of mine who's a great singer, I said, record your own funeral music. And they're like, what? Well, lullaby us goodbye, Sing I Did It My Way. It'd be kind of cool to, hear you sing one more time before I can't hear you anymore. And now we can record it and everybody can take it home, play it and cry their eyes out, and, say things about you. Yes, Francine.
I've been to two funerals. One was where nothing was planned like that, and the other one where she actually planned her own funeral. She chose everything. One was my sister. She died quite young, and it was a big fight. The family was just it was unbelievable, and it was kind of traumatic. And then a couple of years ago, a friend of mine died of cancer, but she kind of prepared the whole thing. And it was more about celebrating her life. And she actually planned it so beautifully. You could see her, and she chose all the pictures and all the songs. And it was a bit like a movie. It was just, I don't know, it was just so beautiful. I think it was one of the most beautiful funerals I went.
Yeah.
It was just, Yes, because it was more like saying goodbye to her versus before when my sister died, it was just so sad because everybody was fighting about the church and this and that. What we're going to eat, who's going to pay. Yeah, it was just dreadful.
Which is part of why I'm bringing this up. I mean, emotions are high, very high. Most people have burned up all their SRUs. So they're emotional and they're toasted and they've all got opinions, and so diffuse the bomb ahead of time. Here it is. Y'all don't have to think about it. Like you said, the lady that planned it all out. Ta-da! My final gift to you.
I want a Viking funeral. You know where they put you on the boat and they send you off with a...
Yeah, send me out with a bonfire. Poof.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Of course, in this day and age, the environmentalists be like, oh, and the smoke is going to get to the birds, and we're going to have a spotted owl fly over, and he'll probably die, and we can't have that. Oh my gosh. Stop typing. Yes, you that's offended about, spotted owls are amazing. I meant no harm to any spotted owls. No animals were harmed in the comments made about a funeral. So, enough about that. I've got 10 minutes left of my time. Before I go to resumes or resumes or however you want to say them, anybody got anything else they want to chime in about obituaries? Yes, no? Okay, cool. How are we going to sell ourselves? Resumes, resumes. It's, yes. I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and all in between. Luckily, my rich dad back in the day taught me his versions of resumes because he'd seen enough of them. It's funny how many people, when I ask them, do you have a resume? You can tell where they are in their career. Because of the way that I've lived and gotten jobs and stuff, I have probably put together 6 real resumes, and 3 of them were for college. Other than that, I was looking for a job and found somebody that had a need, and I sold myself verbally. This is what I can do. Do you want help? And then my wife, who does government recruiting, gets to go through countless numbers of resumes for public positions and all this above, and it's amazing the difference. Some of them are so cookie cutter that it's like, oh, so you went to this website and you plugged in a little bit of information and it spit out a resume for you. Other ones stand out both for good and for bad. And yeah, there were. I know I've said it before. My wife could find a typo in a Webster's dictionary by flipping through. She's got that if that's one of her superpowers. And I mean superpower. And there have been some resumes sent out with such amazing typos that it's sad because I don't know how good the person sending it actually is. You know, some people are just not really into typing and they're not really good with words, but they're amazing with people. They're awesome leaders and all the above. They just happen to have some typing skills, or maybe they've moved here from another country and English wasn't their first language. Now they're here having to use it. And people who have had to come from another country and try to learn English is a challenging language. We've got so many rules and words that are the same, but they're not the same. And if you don't use them the same, the word Nazi are like, you can't use there when it's supposed to be there and there. I bring that up because with resumes, just like with anything else, it's sales. And understanding how many different types of resumes there are, what you're applying for, how you're applying for it. And then when you start learning NLP and languaging and hypnotic language patterns and things of that nature, well, now is that cheating or is that understanding language and communications better? I think I'll go with the latter. Because the more you understand language, the better you can utilize it to express information. That's why here it is, Jordan Peterson again. Jordan, if you're listening, I would love to meet you. Anybody that knows how to get to Jordan Peterson, I would love to meet him. Because the things that he talks about where I'm like, are incredible. And one of them he talks about teaching our kids now about language and communication and writing skills. We're so caught up in the digital age and being able to have autofill and all of these things that if we're not putting together something with the aid of a computer, I see so many, especially young people now, struggling to hold a conversation because they don't have autofill and they don't have all of these different things. They don't have the time to create a text where they get to think a little bit more about what they're going to say. They don't do enough person-to-person communications, which is a skill that needs to be honed and compounded on. So if you were to write a resume, what would you put on it? What would you like to add to it? Yes, back to future pacing. Because we do have the ability to add new things to a resume. And sometimes I've told people, take the time to write down the things that you know. You may be surprised when you see the extent of the list, and then have a few people that know you go over the list, not as bragging rights or anything, but what you're going to find out is these people that know you will remind you of a bunch of stuff that you forgot to put on the list. And so if you're having a day where you're like, I just don't know squat, somebody can go, well, I saw this resume you put together. And then if you do decide to change and do something different, you can pick what you need to highlight to close the sale. Any input, questions, ahas, epiphanies on that little segment of squirrels? Yes, Francine.
I am a foreign speaker. I'm not from English-speaking background. My husband is English-speaking background. He can write beautiful. However, he does a lot of typos. And I will pick the typos, not because I know how to write it right, just because it feels wrong.
Huh?
So I won't be able to write nicely, but I know that something is wrong in the sentence because it doesn't feel right, which is kind of strange.
It's the number of people that you have that in common with is much higher than you give yourself credit for. In fact, I'm one of them. There'll be many of times I'll write something out and go, that doesn't feel right. And I'll have to figure out what is it, the sequence? Is it the use of the words? What is it that isn't correct? And yes, there's a lot to be said. And I think part of that goes to gut instinct. Trust your gut.
My husband writes amazing. He's got the real gift of writing things down. It's like clear and down to the point, and it's just kind and gentle. It's no pointing fingers or no aggressiveness in it. I love reading his stuff. It's just, he's very gifted.
Cool. And have you ever saw the squirrel and I missed the tail? Studied graphology? The study of penmanship. Graphoanalysis, is that it? 25-cent word.
I've done a bit of it over the years with different people. My writing just changes all the time, which is kind of interesting.
Yep, mine too. That's the interesting part about when you start studying penmanship and the way people write and all of the knowledge that you can ascertain simply from their penmanship. It's
I think one of them is the G. If it's similar above than below, and the bottom, the loop of the G is nice.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, T's are one of the ones that stand out the most by the crossbar.
Yeah.
About self-esteem, high self-esteem, they're crossing their T's way above, it's like, does it even touch the bar? It's like, T, we'll put the bar up here. And then people who have really low self-esteem, it's at it's almost, right along the very bottom. And
Yes. Or also sometimes if it's nice and thick, you know what I mean, it also means that you have a bit more deeper self-esteem. It's not just surface.
Yep. And signatures, you can actually help improve parts of your personality by understanding graphoanalysis and working on changing certain ways that you write things. One being your signature. And one of the things that I incorporated shortly after meeting Dr. David, I started adding a smiley face behind my signature. It is actually on my driver's license. And when I did it, the lady at the DMV was like, "Oh, you can't be putting stuff on it." And I went, "Whoa, it's a smiley face. That's part of my signature. That way I know if," I said, "I'm a graphic artist. It's not that hard to copy somebody's signature." I said, "But how many people would remember to put a smiley face behind it? That's part of my official signature." She was like, "Are?" I said, "I promise you, it's not a gang sign or anything. It's a smiley face. And when you saw it, even when I pointed at you, you smiled. Part of my signature." So yeah, it's on my driver's license. Another thing that you can do is underline your name or do something that has a line under your name to give it more power. So little tricks all over the place for helping life go better, right down to how you put your signature down. And that brings me 6 minutes past my first hour, and that brings up an open mic and anything anybody would like to add or question or would like some assistance on or anything. So anything we've been waiting 7 days to share with the group?
I'm gonna open it to the group. Any thoughts on how to sell the work that we all enjoy and make it mainstream? Make it like, oh, I'm interested in that. What you got?
I'm waiting for answers myself.
Define mainstream.
Mainstream as in not to integrate it so that other people see it, recognize it, engage in it immediately. And hi, welcome. Now you're on camera. And it's not kind of like a turnoff where they're like, "Oh no, that's no, I don't want anything to do with that." To make it relatable, engaging, like to use language that is applicable to their everyday life. Like if I hear people use certain words, I know what they mean because now I know more about it, but other people might be like, Like, for example, some people are really keen on the word Reiki, but other people are like, no, that's woo-woo. So how do you make it more mainstream?
I would stick to whatever, there are certain buzzwords, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that are trending. So I would stick to those. So for example, at one point you go back, 5 or so years, suddenly mindfulness became a great thing. And in the past 10 years, if you look at the past 10 years, law of attraction is like a bit of a, you know what I mean? So there are certain kind of buzzwords that people respond to and that already have a pretty good reputation, let's say.
Okay.
Right. And are not they're polarizing in a generally positive way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whereas the word hypnosis is polarizing in a kind of, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I would stick to
I don't really know if like the words like
friendlier
change
language.
work are really,
Huh?
I don't really know if the word is like change work is really that engaging. I do like what you said about mindfulness. I feel like that has become way more mainstream.
Mindfulness is like a thing these days. People are like, oh, you know, you should chew your food more mindfully and you will lose weight. And they're like, huh? And then that's like now it's being used in in nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so like if you kind of just pay attention to what the current buzzwords are, and like you can associate them to what you do,
Okay.
then I think it will be much more
Impactful.
widely attractive,
Okay.
yeah, for a wider audience, because someone might be like, huh, I wonder what she means, because I know mindfulness in this way, but I wonder what she means by right. And it might,
Okay.
and even, whether you get more out of it or not, you probably get at least a few more people checking it out. And that's
Okay.
probably the better way of, like, if you want to increase volume, I don't know if it's going to go fully mainstream, because for me, mainstream means, like Instagram is mainstream, like everybody uses it,
Okay.
even I, like me, who doesn't use social media, I use Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like that's how mainstream it is, so yeah, buzzwords. I think there's an app you can get called hashtag generator or something,
Okay.
and it's got like some kind of clever AI that it kind of is really up to date with all the most popular hashtags. If you kind of put in a description of what it is you're trying to associate to, and then it will generate like a bunch of hashtags that are really popular to do with it. Maybe, I don't know, I haven't tried it, but maybe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And are you asking for people that you're talking to in person, or is this for advertisement or business cards or
All the above.
all the above? Well, there's lots of different angles for all the aboves. That's why I'm asking.
No restrictions. How about it?
With the in-person stuff, Dr. David was always famous for saying, like, hypnosis doesn't care what you call it. You can call it image guiding, energy work, whatever. And part of that, the answer lies in the conversation you're having with the person. Where does it seem like they're going with? Are they auditory? Are they visual? Or the kinesthetic? You get kind of a feel for what it is that might be their buzzword.
In person, I feel like is easier for me personally, but to literally make posts, to literally tell people what you do, tell people how you can help.
How would you describe what you do? If someone asks you, what do you do?
Welcome to my party.
Or how would your husband, or how would your best friend, or how does your mother describe what you do, or any of the above, where you're like,
Lenora, what do you do?
Yeah, we're still working on that one.
Okay.
I help people
get
the changes they want. And then it's like,
people get the changes they want.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they're like, okay, well, what kind of changes? Like, are you going to come to my house and do the dishes or something like that? Like, that's where I'm trying to figure out. Like, I know TJ's is professional problem solver. Wrapped it up with a bow right there.
I've got a question for you.
Oh boy.
I say, okay, you go.
What does Brent Bohm do?
change work with colors and using emotional reframing. He helps people process their memories and their life experiences that are causing them pain. But to put that on a post is very, I feel like it doesn't translate, because I feel like people, especially when you hear the word trauma, even though our lovely group of people usually understand like what trauma is, other people are thinking, well, no, I was never in war. So that's where I'm trying to make it more approachable, understandable, explainable.
I have a friend called Christine who's a coach here in London. She's a German lady. She's very good at what she does. She calls it the silent struggle. Have you ever battled with the silent struggle? And that's how she gets them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was very good the way she said it. I asked her if I could steal it. She was like, no. It's okay. You know, if you guys do it, then it's not me doing it, right?
We know nothing.
I tell people, someone asked me, I say, I help people to change their unwanted automatic behaviors.
Do you find that resonates with people?
Some people, you know,
mm-hmm.
like, you know, or I say, you've seen my business card, right? Have you seen my business card? It says rapid change specialist.
I know that
was
says
it's a
on
bit
your
general,
Facebook.
You know, like I have these little square ones. Hold on one sec.
Okay. Like, I feel like it's, and maybe here's entirely possible, I'm future pacing, literally like the wrong people that are coming to my mind, because people are like, oh, well, explain your ideal client. And if you're going to make a post that says, hey, if you want to stop emotional eating, or nice.
I have this little square one, and it's the same. It has like my tattoo,
yeah,
my company's logo, right?
Very
and
cool.
On the back, it's got like my details and stuff.
Nice.
Right. It's kind of got this kind of soft.
Cool. One little quote that I like using on that question is, you can never say the wrong thing to the right person, and you can never say the right thing to the wrong person. Which goes back to, it doesn't matter what you call it.
Mm-hmm.
If they're looking, you could say, I've learned to swing dead chickens over people and fix problems, and they'd be like, ooh, I've been looking for a witch doctor and they're not in the yellow pages. Thank God I found you. Again, no animals were harmed in the description of a joke. Stop typing. But it's amazing the amount of people that I've run into out of the blue that for some reason struck up a conversation with them, told them what I did, and it was exactly what they were looking for. So try not to be, don't burn up too many SRUs worrying about finding the perfect answer. Figure out who you want, who are the people.
Like, that's the other thing. Just piggybacking off what you just said. I lost it. It's right there.
Okay. Squirrel just went.
Like, if you don't know and you're not putting anything out, right? Waiting to find the perfect little snappy line to put on it, right? Then you're not progressing. you know. Whereas if you're okay with making a mistake from time to time in your life, you just put any old thing on there and try it for a couple months and see what you get, and then maybe you'll get an idea and you change it, and then you change it again and you change it again. And you know, if we are the change people, right, if we ourselves are not changing, does that not make us hypocrites? Right. So I think, like, just put any old thing on there, the whatever is the best idea you currently have, and then know that it's not like chiseled and in stone, and you can change it. You know, it's maybe you don't order 2,000 business cards, maybe you only order 200, right? And then you can update it on the next round.
I've got two things to add to that. One, another Dr. David quote: an imperfect something will always be better than a perfect nothing. But two, when you brought up business cards, and I'm trying to see if I've got some of my old ones. When I had my photography studio, I made a deal with the printing company. I had 3 versions printed each time. All 3 of them were different, and it was mainly I had 3 different pictures per business card, and they charged me the same lot number. I think I ordered them like Elijah said, that 300 or 500 or 600 at a time, so I got 200 of each. But they give me the 600 print price, and when I would hand out cards, I would always hand out 1 of each. If nothing else, just 2 cards, as long as they were different. Like, here's my card, here's one that you can keep your favorite one and hand out another one to a friend. And they're like, oh, these are cool. But it was another way of getting more exposure and a reason for them to hand out more cards.
Yeah, I used to do. I used to give people my card and say that if you give this card to someone else, and that someone else presents this card to me, they'll get a discount. So you can pay it forward.
Yep.
Right.
And as long as we're on business cards, this came up the other day. A few things that I've been taught. Now, Elijah's card is unique in that he picked the right a unique size and unique feel versus the standard rectangular. If you're going to do the standard rectangular, oh, look at that. That one looks familiar. Yeah, right? One of the things that I've come across, and I truly believe, make sure you've got your picture on it. The reason is they've proven people will hang on to a business card much longer if it has a photo of a person on it than not, because of the psychological attachment to a human being on the card. A lot of people will bring cards home, and it's a standard card, no pictures of anybody on it. You're like, oh, I don't even remember what that was about. And they'll chuck it. Yeah, it's cute and everything, but again, they've proven, especially if it's your picture that's on there, they've met you, you presented them with a card that's an attachment, and it has your face on the card. They will hang on to that card much longer than they will a card that doesn't have a picture on it. The other thing I always tell people it doesn't cost much more to add to the real estate on the back of the card. When I see people hand me a card and I turn around and look at the back and it's blank, I'm like, how sad. You wasted all that space. The other thing that I like to do is spend the extra money like Elijah did so that it has some sustenance to it, not the cheapest ones they make, so it stands out a little bit. I like to do the front side photo glossy and do the back side in black and white matte. Why would I do the back side in a matte instead of glossy on both sides? Take a guess.
Because you can write on the back.
Exactly. Notes get added to this. And a lot of times I've even added my own notes on it. Set up an appointment and write it right on there. Or point out that you have a free 30-minute consultation or whatever. And then you can go, and because I initialed it, I'll bump it up to 45 minutes. And you just initial it quick and hand it to them. Personalize it. So those are some of the tricks.
Do you initial with a smiley face too?
Yes, I do. Thanks for asking. Yes, I do. Hello, Fran. There's that smile.
I've been listening, but just haven't been able to be on screen for a bit.
That's okay. We saw your icon, so I knew that you were in there somewhere. It's just good to see your face. So while you were listening, what's your favorite takeaway so far? She's like, sure, I bring on the camera and then you got to put me on the spot. Thanks a lot, buddy.
You've just given me a lot of food to think about. And I mean, some I've heard before, some is really worth thinking about. Some I might think of modifying slightly for me, but there's a lot of good information and food for thought there. Yeah. And yes, I did take everything on board from last time. However, it wasn't my best day that day, but that was all good. And, yes, I heard.
No, here's the best part about that. I am so glad you showed up on a day that wasn't your best day. I would much rather have people show up on low days than just only on the high days. We're here to help people, and it meant so much to me to know that we were able to circle around you and let you know that we love you. So there, you're stuck with me and stuff. So any questions on business cards as long as they popped up like that?
Sorry. I wanted to say, Francine was singing your praises earlier before you came on. Yes.
Now you got to watch the first part of the recording. It's up there. Linda also let me know she wasn't going to be able to make it, so I told her I was going to be talking about her. So here I am talking about her. Now she'll have to listen this far in to find out that I mentioned her name, and yes, I mess her.
That thing you told me that you were going to tell us about her, we'll leave it till the very end so you can watch the whole
Yeah,
show.
when we shut off the recording, you weren't supposed to mention that, but yeah, we'll cover that after a while. It's one of the things people get for missing Triple T live.
And what's worse than being talked about? Not being talked about.
Right? Exactly. Goes right back to the stuff that we were talking about earlier, especially on the obituary. The saying that people die twice. The first time is when you take your last and final breath in your body on this planet. And the second time you die is when people no longer remember who you were. And some people will never die that second death, and some people almost die it before they take their last breath, which is unfortunate. So,
Have you ever seen Coco? Did you watch Coco?
yes, great. Well, yes. Is there anybody who hasn't seen the movie Coco yet? Watch it.
It's amazing.
Yes.
It's amazing.
And Kleenex.
It's funny because my wife.
It's a Disney, right? It's a Disney animated. Very
Pixar,
good.
yeah.
Excellent.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Excellent.
It's funny because before my wife met me, she'd only watched a couple of animated movies because she had children. Now she married one, and she has now watched more animated movies since she met me than the entire time of raising two children. But I pointed out to her, even like Coco, Coco is not a kid's movie.
That's the amazing thing, is that it is, but it's not.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And they do this, Pixar do this so well, that they make it entertaining enough for kids, but then there's some really deep messages for adults as well. Like, have you seen Inside Out? Have you seen Inside Out?
Well, absolutely.
That's another one. It's really cool for kids, but actually there's some awesome science in there and for adults and stuff, right? As well.
Yep.
It's great. I love all that stuff.
You obviously haven't been brought up with programs like Play School, Elijah, because
I
there's
remember
all
Play
these
School. I remember Play
double
School.
entendres thrown in for the adults there.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Magic Roundabout.
Oh yes.
Let's be real.
Now you're talking.
And if we're going to get really into it, Scooby Doo. You know, when I was like 35, 37 odd years old, is when I figured out what was actually happening in Scooby Doo, and I was like, I lost my innocence all over again. It was crazy.
I love that.
There's this dude who lives in the back of a van and talks to his dog. Think about that for a moment.
Yes. Or Schoolhouse Rock. You guys remember Schoolhouse Rock?
I think that might be an American thing. I don't think we had that here. Well, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, but even so, get a hold. They still have the recordings. You can watch all of the Schoolhouse Rock stuff on YouTube. And yes, some of the stuff about Constitution and stuff are American, but there's a lot of language and math stuff because they've realized that kids learn so much quicker with music. And so they put all of these lessons to these funky, I'm just a bill and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill or conjunction junction. What's your function? Hooking up words and making them sound right. Yes.
He's totally right. That's exactly how they sound over here.
Yes, I was the one sitting in front of the TV. So, yes, another one that's...
The unconscious mind loves rhythm, repetition, and rhyme. The unconscious mind loves rhythm, repetition, and rhyme. The unconscious mind loves rhythm, repetition, and rhyme. The unconscious mind loves repetition, and rhyme. Right?
The good part, somebody just fast forwarded and landed on that and went, it's stuck. It's on loop. But yes, regarding Pixar and all of these children's adult movies that are designed for adults who have to watch movies with children are awesome. Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, dude. There's a bit where they're like, how did we get here before them? I don't know. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense. It's so stupid.
Right?
I love the guy. You know the big muscly guy.
Kronk.
I love him. He's
Yep.
Oh my god, he's such an awesome character. I love him so much. My spinach puffs.
Right?
Right? He's freaking awesome. Oh my god.
And part of me is absolutely convinced that Pixar has no drug testing to work there. Because some of the stuff they come up with, I'm like, somebody's been hitting the funny stuff. I applaud you. Because I don't know how you came
I
up.
really love like Mulan. You see Mulan? Oh my god.
Oh yes, I've watched
Mulan
all
is
of them,
like,
dude.
You know when he says to the horse, "Down, Betsy." It's so stupid. I love the stupid shit. If you guys ever sit with me through a movie, I'm gonna laugh at the dumbest stuff.
Have you seen Lucas?
Lucas?
Yes.
No, I haven't seen Lucas.
Got to watch that one.
Okay.
About a kid who's how would I describe him? Basically, he's a sea monster.
Luca? Is it Luca?
Luca? Could be sea monster, but when they get out of water, they become human.
Okay, I'm gonna watch it.
Another one with great message. So yes, here we are.
Talking Disney.
Yes.
Well, that's taken off an old folk tale about seals and how seals in the water are seals, but when they come on land, they can change into human form. So that's an old Scottish folklore.
Really?
So you're bringing, they're bringing wonderful folklore into these stories as well. So it sort of has deep roots, which is kind of cool.
Yes.
Yeah, like in Coco, that tradition, that's a real Mexican tradition, So
Yeah.
I learned something about Mexicans that I didn't know, So it's awesome. Oh, dude, I'm thinking about stupid things in funny movies now. Have you ever watched Dodgeball?
What's that?
Have you ever watched Dodgeball? Dodgeball?
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
Dude, stop your life and go and watch Dodgeball. It's freaking like, seriously. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Ben Stiller, but oh my god, he's so funny in that movie.
Did you ever see the one from the 90s, Heavyweights?
I don't think so. Let me check.
Oh,
I can jog a memory.
as long as we're on the subject of movies, I would like you guys to watch the movie The Bear.
The Bear?
The Bear. Came out in like 89 or 90. Won massive awards for cinematography. Follows the life of a little bear cub. And there's no narration. It's all in cinematography. You don't need the narration to know what's going on with this little guy. The only time you hear any English language is when he has a conflict with humans.
Oh wow.
But the story, the movie is great. It's one of my all-time favorites. And it's funny, people ask me, what's one of your favorite movies? I'm like, The Bear. They're like, The Bear?
Jungle Book.
Yes. Which version? Yes.
The original, obviously.
Yep.
King Louis, dude. King Louis. Well, I'm the king of the swingers, yeah. The jungle VIP. I reached the top and had to stop, and that's what's bothering me. Oh, dude, so good.
Yep.
So good.
Talking about what Fran was saying, they put like folklore into some of those movies. One of the folklores where I was born in Luxembourg is that there were what are those ones called with tails in English? You know, those women with long tails, fish tails.
Mermaids.
Mermaids.
So that the mermaids actually came up the river, and one of the princes of Luxembourg disappeared like that with mermaids. Part of the folklore. So that's kind of interesting as well. Unlike folklore.
We've got a lot of those folklore tales from around the U.S. as well, and of course, me being from Minnesota, yeah, we've got the legend of Paul Bunyan, Babe. If you go up north to Brainerd there, then you can see the big life-size statue of Paul Bunyan. And in my the town that I grew up nearby, where I went to school at, we've got Big Ole, the Viking, in our town hall. The big statue. So it's also fun to go around, and that's part of what I love about traveling. And the cool thing about traveling, the more you get to meet people from around the planet, the more it opens up your mind to what's possible out there. Part of, and I'll probably have I don't know if I'll have anybody from my hometown watch any of these or not, but I've got some people from where I grew up in my humongous metropolis of 187 people who are proud of the fact that they've never left the state of Minnesota. And I'm like, all right, so you went to the buffet and you had a cheese sandwich your entire life. Nothing against cheese sandwiches. I like a good cheese sandwich. But I also like steak, and I like shrimp, and I like lots of other things. And I think we all make our own choices. You know, if that was your main thing in life, was I don't need to go anywhere beyond, 50 miles away from this little village. It's sometimes hard for me to relate and talk with them about certain things going on in the world because their world is about this big. And I've seen enough of the world. I haven't seen all of it. I would like to. Hopefully I live to be 94 and get to see, well, there's so many other things that I would like to see. In fact, it's funny. I get people ask me all the time, well, where would you like to go next? I'm like, blindfold a monkey and have him throw a dart at a map of the globe. Well, what if it lands in the middle of the ocean? Guess I'm on a cruise. Or maybe I'm in a plane on my way to somewhere, and that's my intersection. I never thought I'd make it to Australia. Luckily, I did.
Uluru. Is it Uluru? What's that giant rock in Australia? I want to see that.
Uluru.
Uluru, yeah. I want to see that. And I want to see Angel Falls in Venezuela.
Yep.
It's the tallest waterfall, so high that the water turns into mist on the way down.
It's cool.
And what else? There's a whole bunch of stuff, dude. So much stuff you got to see.
Although there's a couple of things that I have to say were a little underwhelming for me. like in Copenhagen, Denmark, they have the statue of the mermaid that everybody's seen. It's about this big. Yeah, I was like, a friend of mine was,
Mermaids are that big. What if they're like fairies?
well, that was
I
the
never thought
part. I'd seen so many pictures of it. You know, you got to go to Copenhagen and you got to see the mermaid in the bay and everything. And I'm like, cool. And a friend of mine's taking me on a little tour of Copenhagen, and all of a sudden she's like, and there's the mermaid, the famous mermaid. And I'm like, where? She's like, there. I'm like, that little thing?
That's also an American thing. Everything's big where you guys are.
Oh,
Thinking
Yeah, but-
about big, I want to go see Komodo dragons in situ.
oh, yeah.
But I don't want to be bitten by one.
No, I was just going to say, bring somebody who runs slower than you. Thanks for bringing me with. You're welcome. How's
They
that
can, do
mean?
short, they can do short bursts fairly fast, I think.
Oh yes, that's why I was like, yeah, I once saved myself from a grizzly bear with a 22. They're like, with a 22? Yeah, well, the person I shot in the knee wasn't too impressed, but at least I got away.
I'd like to go to South America, well, to the US as well. But yeah, I'd like to go to South America and do the Inca Trail. I think that's one of my things I'd like to do. And then the most important, I want to go and see my parents and my son in Europe again.
Good. So what's your timeline? What's stopping you? What do we have to accomplish to make that happen?
My timeline is that I am planning to go there for Christmas.
Christmas. Good.
It's just the only thing is that we'll have to still be open, you know, hope for cross fingers. But I think things are yeah. So that's the goal.
Wait, is COVID still a thing?
Well,
thought it
the
was
thing
over.
is that I'm not vaccinated, so I might have issues going in. So I might have to
Okay.
get vaccinated like in November, if they still have the rules in.
Yeah.
But yeah, the plan is to go and see my son and my parents for Christmas.
Cool.
I think that would be a nice thing for me. I love Christmas in the mountains. So, but I bet they won't be in the mountains. Then they'll decide, no, we're going to the house in south of France where it's warmer. But yeah, that's all right.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it?
Yes.
Wine and cheese, you know.
But you know what? My mom is one fantastic French cook. Oh my goodness, the stuff she cooks. It's delicious. But then my Mexican cooking is nicer than hers Mexican.
Yeah.
You're the crock pot, right?
No, I do everything in the pan.
No, you know the comment earlier on.
Oh, yes, no, yeah. Well, you guys were saying that sometimes you have to, what was it again? In life, sometimes you have to wait to discover your good sides. You have to figure them out.
Yeah.
So mine is like, well, you know, I'm close to 60. So it's more like I'm a crock pot, you know, it takes a bit long. But then the meat is really tender.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Maybe I'm blushing. That's all right.
Good.
Yeah. And a bit cracked, you know. Kind of works.
It's all right. They say that is it the Japanese or the Chinese repair broken bowls with gold.
Chinese, I think.
Chinese
I don't know.
because if you've survived being cracked a couple of times, you're worth a little bit more than those that have never suffered any issues.
Yeah, like what was that quote? Damaged people are the most dangerous because they know how to survive.
Yes.
Right.
Kintsugi.
So
I think
another reason why I think it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. That silenced people up. You're like, ooh.
My
look up the
my brain went
Japanese.
to the war, so sorry.
What's that?
My brain went to the war. I met this lady from Ukraine a couple of days ago. I mean, I'm not a news watching, but if you know me, I don't watch the news, right?
Yep. Same here.
I don't really know anything about the war, right? All I know is it's happening, right? But I don't know anything about it. I don't keep up with it and stuff. But it wasn't until I met this lady and she was talking about how like people in her town, and I was just like, oh man.
Oh yeah. I've got a few friends from there, and they still have family back there, and you pray for the innocents. But it's the same reason why I say that it's much better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. Train your mind, even if it's nothing more than the stuff that we learn about NLP and the ways to reduce stress, the ways to get rid of toxicity, being able to choose your tribe. All of these are things that we can be cognitive of on a daily basis, and pray that we always get to spend our entire life in the bliss of a garden. But knowing that we're surrounded with knowledge and people, that if something goes down, we're okay, or at least doing the best we can. No different than, well, I don't mean to minimize it, but a lot of people are going through mental warfare at a level, in relationships and at work and in their families and stuff. And we get to be some of the chosen few that get to go in and help these people.
And remind them what it's like to have fun.
Yes. Show them that we know how to recharge by watching Pixar movies that were designed for adults that have to watch movies with children.
I'm gonna call it an early night. It's like almost 2 a.m. and I have to get up at like 4.
Yeah, we got 8 minutes left, so it was about time to
right. It's been a
check out
pleasure.
it.
Always is a pleasure, and I'll see you guys next time. All right.
Thanks for all of your input. Appreciate you, brother. Well, that leaves the four of us. With 8 minutes left, what would you ladies like to talk about? What can we help each other with? What's
Positive spins on difficult situations.
Positive spins on difficult situations. One thing that I've learned is if you are trained enough or exercised enough to look at the good side of stuff, you can almost always find something positive in anything. Viktor Frankl, I can't remember Help me out with the title of his book. Do you guys remember? Anyhow, to be in a concentration camp and to find beauty in a fly.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes, thank you. To find beauty in a fly in this rancid soup that they gave them as prisoners. In the middle of all that, and people are like, how could you even think something like that? And he goes, because I had a choice. There's always something that I could find being grateful for or find beauty in. And so just like with my clients that I have doing the daily planners and writing down 3 things that they remember from the day, you know, 3 cool things, good things, whatever from the day that impacted them. That is flexing a muscle, exercising, getting themselves to start seeing things that have been around them the entire time. But because our minds have been structured for eons to be weighted towards the negative, we miss so many of the cool, beautiful things around us.
Reminds me of something I heard once about what to do when you meet somebody who you really can't find anything likable about. Even if they've just got nice shoelaces, or, you know, celebrate that and compliment them on their shoelaces. It's a starting point. And from that tiny point, other things grow.
Yeah. He had one shiny tooth in his mouth.
I try to think of it, Fran. People have always told me that I wear rose-colored glasses. I've heard this my entire life. Oh, good. I'm in good company. I like the idea of the fact that there's 2 sides to everything. Everything. You can't slice it thin enough for there not to be another side to it. So in looking at one thing, it depends on what you're talking about. So the first thing I thought about was this person that I really don't like, or this thing about this person that I don't like. Thank you for showing me what I don't want. Thank you for being a teacher. Thank you for clarifying that I don't want this. This is great. You are absolute evidence that this is not what I want. And finding a way to massage it and pivot in a different direction and looking at it saying, okay, this is great. I don't like that. That's great. What else? What else can I gather from the situation? So even in that, you're drawing more information to start pivoting and massaging it differently and thinking about it differently.
That's an awesome analogy.
Absolutely. And, you know, when you come to a place in your life when you just don't know what you want, you don't know which way to go, sometimes starting with what you definitely don't want is a good way forward. Again, you know, I don't want this. I don't want that. What else is there?
Yeah.
And yeah, I find that useful sometimes for if I hit a brick wall, don't know what to do next.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know why that works so well?
Why?
Right back to our brains are naturally weighted heavier towards the negative. And for when it's really hard to see a positive, we can always find a negative. Just like when I help people get rid of their headaches through the ratchet system, it's amazing how easily they can make their headache worse. As soon as they realize that they can use their mind to make their headache worse, now you can help them make their headache better. But you have to keep ratcheting downward to get them down to the bottom. And their brain will always be more than happy to bounce up, you know, back up to a good headache and then ratchet down. But again, that goes right back to our natural predication for the negative.
Even, I'm sorry.
Huh?
No. I was going to say something. Oh, wait, go.
No,
One thing that I always thought was really helpful is even in when we're down really low and in that really deep part of sadness, starting to move up the literal energetic channel of, okay, I might be really down here, but I can start moving that needle upward, and even building that momentum can start to shift it, because you're not going to go from like completely down in the dumps to completely elated, but you can start climbing that ladder and working your way up, and even massaging it in a different way and gathering that information. So even in that, from sadness, if you could move it upwards, okay, maybe a little bit of anger. It's not great. We don't want to be in angry, but it's way better than not moving at all and being stagnant.
One thing that I learned about sort of being at a really low point in my life, it kind of like a diving springboard. The more the springboard goes down, the higher you get shot back up when the pressure's no longer there.
Wow,
So,
that's a really good point. Yeah.
You know, sometimes the worse it is, the higher you can go.
Mm-hmm.
And I've repeated that so many times in my life that I feel that's pretty good law. It's
Absolutely.
my law anyway.
No, absolutely. And even from the idea of balance, like, for as, you know, I find it very consistent, for as nice as somebody can be, they also have that ability to be dark. But the fact that they can be as nice as they are, they have to have that exact counterbalance, which I really think is very powerful. If you think about Buddha or Jesus or somebody in that extreme level of kindness and clarity, they have that ability, which is why they have this ability. And that, I think, is a beautiful thing. So where you even said, like, you can be down that low, which means you can go that high. Because if you're just kind of wavering in here, there's not a lot of variation. But when there is variation, although it might not feel great, you can get to that point of feeling great.
And of course, if you don't have the capacity to understand the dark, how can you help people who are going through the dark?
Absolutely.
You need to help. Yeah.
What I found as well is that when you're actually going down, it's a bit like a roller coaster. You know, it goes down and then suddenly it goes really fast. But if you're actually looking and enjoying and being present in the moment and feeling it, it goes zoop, and then you're much faster out again. I found that, you know, if you actually go and enjoy the ride, it's just kind of works for me.
I never thought of it like that, Francine. That's really interesting, to find a way to, even going down, to find a way to say, all right, going under.
Let's dig in it. Let's get it sorted. And then you just come out so much faster.
Yeah.
Ask my husband, I go down. I go down. And then whoosh, I'm back up. Yeah. I think I'm mastering it.
Those tools, you're collecting them. You got them.
Your specialty area, Francine. Maybe this is a niche market for you. Who knows?
When you're down, I'll help you make it fun.
Wonderful.
That is a great tagline.
Definitely.
Write it down, Francine.
When you're done, I'll help make it fun. And I want to thank Lenora publicly. She sent me an awesome PDF of.
I think it was from that group.
Yeah, well, the one, I didn't have a whole lot of time to read and digest all of it, but one thing that I caught that really hit hard was, I like to ask questions with my clients. constantly. I'm trying to figure out what metaphor, analogy that I can use to help them. And one was a lady who was going through a divorce, found out that her husband had cheated on her and all this stuff, and she was like, I feel like I'm drowning, and I'm trying to hold my kids up and everything, and I'm out in the middle of the ocean and all the above, and the question finally came around to, okay, you're out in the water. How deep is the water? And she realized it was only knee deep. And she just had to stand up for herself and make her kids stand up for themselves too. And she didn't have to leave him. She just had to stand up for him and stop just floating around. And because just like when Lillian Pearl Bridges was talking about how when you're married, you're not two become one. You're still two individuals in canoes going down the river of life. And if you're not constantly checking in, it's easy to keep paddling and talking to each other, but you're drifting apart, and all of a sudden somebody accidentally went down a wrong tributary. And you got to figure out, is it worth the fight to get back over the landmass in between the two of you? Is it worth the fight to figure out communications to find a way to get back onto the same river? All of that stuff, the same type of stuff is asking questions, figuring out a metaphor or an analogy that their brain can put together so their subconscious and conscious can stop fighting with each other. Man, we got to go anyway. We're 5 over the time. Thank you all for joining me and us. And for those of you that are still watching and listening, thank you so much for spending your time. As always, I ask that you click the subscribe button and click the bell and share this with everybody and join us in 7. I can't believe we've made it 20.
We are 20 weeks into the new year too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Clicks
I
off
don't think we
quickly.
can call it the new year anymore.
Yeah, we can. We're heading towards the next one, so future pace.
Look at that, Lou.
Right?
Way to close it.
All right. Thank y'all. See you
Thank
in
you.
7.
Bye.
Get all of these recordings properly saved. You guys are so awesome.
How are you?
I'm tired.
Thank you for this, TJ.
Yes.
What's that?
Thank you very much for this, TJ. I think these are great. I love them.
Thank you so much, because without you guys, I would just be talking to myself, which I've done before, but some people think I need meds when that happens. So.
We all talk to ourselves.
I talk to myself all the time.
There are
You don't
times
need meds.
there are times I talk to myself and totally crack myself up out of the blue, which is when people look at me like, those that know me really well are like, all right, we'll play. What is it this time? Oh, Francine.
Yes.
When I was living in Bourg-en-Bresse, the mother made this very simple hot green soup that I learned to just fall in love with and mistakenly did not get the recipe for. And it was,
Like peas or
yes, peas and like pearl pasta or something like that. It was almost like she blended it. And
I'll ask my mum. My
yeah,
mum comes from that region, so
it was so simple. It was like peas and some, I don't know if it was milk, salt, pepper, and then like